Okay, well, I think we're going to get started. Hi, my name is Sarah Lloyd, and this is Understanding and Communicating with the Military Child. Before we get started and tell you about myself, how this began was I was working at the after-school program when me and my husband were stationed in Italy with the elementary school age. And we got this grant to do a program with the kids to develop self-esteem, independence, and a community for them. And at first, excuse me. Frog in my throat? Okay. At first, I am so sorry. At first, we thought, all right, we'll test it out. We'll do it with the mature third graders and fourth and fifth. So that is the group that we worked in. And it was about 10 kids. And the results were pretty amazing. So I had the idea of, in the midst of moving back to the States, why not do a presentation on this for TH? I think it would really benefit both the TH community and also the military child. So my qualifications, I've been a PATH member since I was 17 years old. I am a PATH Advanced instructor. I went through the mentor program. I graduated from St. Andrews getting my bachelor's in therapeutic horsemanship. And also I worked at the Children and Youth Services. So, it's right in front of me. Okay. And now I am a instructor at Angels on Horseback in Region 5. So that's really exciting for me. And that's just my new steed that I found in Barcelona. So, my objectives, to understand how deployments, frequent moves, the parents with PTSD, and the military culture affects the military child, and understanding the positive impact that it could have on your center. Before we get even past this, I would like you to talk amongst each other why you came to this. What do you just want to develop a program for the military family? Are you gearing towards the veterans? Do you already have a veterans program? Because I want this to be a discussion. As I said before, I learned this, I was kind of thrown into it, and I fell in love with it. I didn't think the military community was going to be intimidating, very intimidating, but the more we talk about it, the more we're educated about it, the better off we're all going to be to help them. So go ahead and talk for a moment or two, get to know your neighbors. Promise they all probably don't bite. That's an idea. Okay, can I get everyone's attention back up here? Okay. So I love the discussion that's happening because that's what international conferences are all about. Hello. I've been coming to international conferences come for 5 times, and each time I come, my favorite is when someone gives you that opportunity to discuss in the middle of the session, because that's how you get to network and meet new people outside your region. Okay, so what makes the military child different? It's not eating off the ground like chickens, but that's why we had this lovely board. So I wanted to look at your ideas before we go to my ideas. We have lack of parenting in the long-term service, emotional issues, family roles changing with deployments. We are saying goodbye to significant people living on base in multiple moves. Changing school and friends, and non-military child, because when I was thinking about this, what does make them different? Because otherwise they're just another kid and it's just another program. What makes them so special? That is why we're here today. Family roles stay consistent. Living in a non-base setting, living in one place, may stay in the same school, groups, friends. There is not much change when you're in a non-military family. So we'll be getting to that. What makes a military child so unique? The parent's occupation. The parents' occupations are definitely different. So, for instance, my husband is a combat medic. So when he goes out, he treats their wounds just right when it happens, just like a paramedic would. But when he is out there, he also may help with a instant surgery that needs to happen, or he told me a story about holding a human's heart. And so a normal training session is not usually so normal. Or if a person their parents are in the infantry and they're in a part of a deployment unit, they are definitely going to be, their parents are going to probably be a lot more cautious. And also their responsibilities are a lot different. One of my children who placed a big stain on my heart, I always said, I'll call her Mary. Mary's mother became a first sergeant as a woman in the United States Army. And that is a big deal because she took command. Mary was having a really hard time with mom always focusing on work, and was suffering severe depression on the midst of wanting to take her own life. Sorry, that's kind of hard because she felt that her mom had too much stress going on and too much going on taking on the new unit to not focus on her, and she didn't feel as important. And the only person she felt that she could talk to was me. So that made it very difficult in that sense. We were stationed over in Italy, so you do have people they're away from families, so they don't get the same support. Her father was stationed in the United States, so yes, she had both parents, but that happens quite often. And becoming up a military child is definitely different. The constant change, as people were saying, with the moves and with their parents coming and going, there's always a chance for change. There is a little statistic for you. There's 1.29 million, and that is 0.5% of the U.S. population that's in the military. So that is quite a low amount of a group that also is being changed. With also change, you comes friends coming and going, not just you moving, but they're moving. I like the point about the military housing. When you're living on military housing, people have PCSing every 2 to 3 years. Maybe they live there 8 years. Maybe they're only there 9 months. So it's a constant change, constant what's going on in their life. Mission first. So if anyone that is in the military or has someone that's in the military, it's always mission first. What that means is the job comes before a birthday, before an anniversary, before a parent seeing their child in a play. One of the funniest things was one of the ladies I met, she would go by their life on deployment. So she would literally go Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan. And then that's how she based what happened on in her life and what birthdays he was at and wasn't at, was which deployment what happened at that time. So it's really interesting for the child to be so aware of the mission first, because Maria did not want to disturb that. So that leads to needing to grow up fast. If you're the oldest sibling, you are going to be probably having to help your little brother or sister to understand why is mommy and daddy gone all the time, depending on the base you're at. So that's a really hard thing that sometimes that they have going on. In a TH setting, you would have consistency. They would have a shoulder to lean on. They would have that. So life challenges that they have. The one that stuck out to me the most, I found the most interesting, was second traumatic stress. It's kind of like the mirror image effect. So parents with PTSD, they come home, all their kid wants is time with their parent. Their parent can't give that. Their parents having nightmares or can't go through a mall without feeling overcrowded. So the child starts to act out in those same ways. They start to have the nightmares. They start to be more not wanting to be social. That same effects happen to the kid. So this other statistic I thought was very interesting. That the United States military service members and veterans who deploy to war in Iraq and Afghanistan have recently been estimated to be the highest as 23%, which is 1/3 of the military. And that's just what they have reported. So that's a study that was done. Now, of course, there are people that are not going to come forward with their challenges from coming back from being deployed. So that's 1/3 of the military that's coming back and saying, I have a problem, I need help, but how many more are there? So that I thought was very interesting. Does anyone know how often the military person, a child, moves in their lifetime on average? Yeah, so give me a number. How often do you think they move from born to 18? 9, 8, any other numbers? 9. Okay, so on average, statistically, is 6 to 9 times in their lifetime. So that is changing 6 to 9 times houses. And that's just the average alone. I have a friend that's moving 3 times in a year and a half. Thankfully, they don't have kids, but if they did have children, what could happen? There's a lot of times when your parents are higher ranking and you have to move within 6 weeks. And that is 6 weeks moving internationally. That's 6 weeks moving from one state to the other and packing up your life, getting your kid rolled in school, and hope that they interact and get them into activities so that they can make friends. That is a lot. And I can tell you, I just did a move myself, and I'm not a child, and it was quite difficult because my stuff left beginning of July. I didn't leave Italy until end of August, and then I didn't receive my stuff again till 2 weeks ago. That's almost a month and a half without any of my stuff. Now, sometimes you have to leave it before because you're in the height of PCS season. We'll get into that later. So, in forming new relationships, they are, I will have to say, they are very resilient, these children. And I asked one of my kids, I asked him, what makes you different as a military kid than a non-military kid? He says, we're resilient. I looked at him, he's a 5th grader, and I was like, okay, well, you are so beyond your years. Their maturity level is quite insane. So I think a very good, important thing when you are with this community is learning their environment. So their base culture. So what that means is are they a part of a small base, a large base? Are they, is their parent a high-ranking officer? Are they high-ranking enlisted? There is a difference depending on what base you're at and what branch you're at. Are they, is the base always moving? Are they training a lot? I came 6 months after my husband to Italy, and he lived there less than I did. He was always gone. I was more used to him being gone than he was home. So him being home now is quite awkward. So that is a big thing that I would recommend you guys looking into. Is their base a deployment? Is their unit, do they frequently deploy? Because some units are non-deployable units, and then others are very much so. They deploy, they cycle in, one group goes, they cycle out, the other group goes. So there's a very big difference, and the environment and the culture really does affect the child themselves. Are their parents, do they live on base? Because base living there is a culture to it because you still are around other military families. Some children find that if their parents are higher ranking, that means that they are that rank also. When you're 6 and you did not earn to be a colonel. So that also is a thing when they're playing with a child that is a enlisted child, parents that are enlisted. A big thing is a PCS season. So that stands for a permanent change of station. So PCS season, you are located, but typically they try to do it in the wintertime and in the summertime. Summertime is the biggest time for people to be coming and going. They do this because they don't want the kids to miss out on school or to be changing their schools in the middle of the school year. So they typically do move during the summertime. So when you are starting a program or starting a new session, probably starting in the fall for them would be the best because they are just getting into their home. They're trying to find things to do. And during the wintertime, and maybe at the beginning of the year, that would also be a good time. So, do I have any questions, comments, concerns? Yes. Yeah. It's permanent. Sorry, change of station. There's so many, I will have to say, in the military community, I'm still learning them. There are so many acronyms for everything, PCS, helmets have a name and each helmet has its own name. It's like, that's a helmet. No, that's a AC something. So they each have their own name for them. So that is a huge, huge way to find out. And to keep in mind, when you move and they're coming into their new place, they only have 10 days to find a home. So they get a hotel by the Army provided for 10 days, and they say, find a house, and you have to move into it in 10 days. Good luck. If you would like to stay in that hotel longer, you're paying for it out of your pocket. So keeping that in mind, when you're leaving that duty station, you're already trying to talk to a realtor to find a home for your family in the best school district, trying to find them friends. So it's not only, once again, the mirror image. The parents are under stress. The mother or the father who is not active duty is trying to manage all this because the soldier is trying to outprocess, and that is anyone that's been in the military or has someone in the military, that is a job within itself, and the other person is left to doing the rest. And it's a lot of fun. Okay. Building a bond. So with this military community, I will have to say the one thing I learned is they are so mature, these kids. Some of these third graders act like sixth graders, and their parents are very upfront with them because they have to be with the jobs that they have going on. So being honest. Yes, we're honest with all kids, and I hope everyone's honest with everyone, but to a whole other level that you are speaking to them as they are an adult, because that is how they've been treated, and that's how they know to be communicated with. So that is one of the things, because they will ask you questions, and you're like, how did you come up with that? You're in the 4th grade. So focusing on the child. So, of course, everything that we do, we like to focus on our rider, but so much of it is focused on the parent, what the parent's job is, how often they move, where are you from? I think that is the one question, one of my students, she said, tell them that to never ask them where they're from. Because I move so much, I don't know where to tell you I'm from. Usually she says, I picked the place that made me the happiest. She says, sometimes I pick the place that my mom was home the most. Sometimes I pick the one that first comes to my head. So don't ever ask them where they're from. They'll usually just give you where they're born, and then they'll give you about 8 other states. So don't ever ask that. So focusing on the child, what do they like to do? Some of them really are into Minecraft or Fortnite, and you learn about these things, and you're like, why do I know about Fortnite? But you learn about it. And I think that is really important, to not harp on the military aspect, but that to try to focus more on them being a child and bringing them back down to that. Supporting their decisions. They don't get to usually make decisions by any means, as most kids don't, but they are told, you have to do this because it looks good on me, or you have to go here because I have a ribbon cutting ceremony. You have to do this. So letting them say, I don't want to ride today. Okay, that's cool. What do you want to do today? And let it be open. Let that decision be open, because when we were doing our groups, one day the kids were just insane, and we're like, do you want to do the group today? No. Cool. But we have to make sure the rest of the group didn't want to. We did have a contract with these kids to uphold them to the standard of the group, so that everyone knew that it was a safe place and that they could speak once amongst each other. In the group lessons, they do so well, and we had boys and girls in this group. It wasn't just boys or just girls. We did do 1 or 2 sessions with just boys and just girls to get their impact, but we we talked about our environments. We talked about what we see ourselves as internally and externally. And some of the things they came out with was pretty deep and pretty amazing. And the way they supported each other because they have that camaraderie. They understand what that next person is going through. It's the same thing as with their parents, as with the child. I think if you had them in a lesson with a non-military child, yeah, all kids have connections, but having them with other military children is really going to bring them together and to gain those strengths. On that note, so yeah. So, how can the military community benefit your center? Does anyone have any notes on this? How anyone have any ideas of how the military can benefit your center? Yes. Hi. Okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yes. Oh, wow. Yes. Yeah, I think maybe having them come out as a volunteer so that they are part of that lesson and have that military community and have them be a part of that, but then also maybe have a little session for them to bond and something be about them afterwards. But I really do think them having a purpose or having someone else to help and get that back, they're going to want to do the same thing. Yeah. Yes.
And that was actually, I guess I liked a lot of what was being said. So, as far as your initial question about getting what is the benefit,
Yes.
we actually have a lot of our military personnel who volunteer as sidewalkers.
Oh, awesome.
I mean, they have a heart of service. They signed up in the first place. And then often they get connected with the horses and they're willing to get involved in some of our military programs.
Correct.
Along the lines of what you were talking about, I'm interested. So we have kids camps. So we have camps where the military kids can just come for free for the week.
Okay.
And then we have family horsemanship times where they're riding. I'm just curious about with the program you're running.
I based this off of we got a grant, it was called Manadu. And I would like for centers, what it is I would like for centers to start developing a program for the military child based off of things that their needs. So I think them using them as volunteers, them doing a camp specifically geared towards them. So working on how do I deal with this move? How do I easily develop friendships? How do I keep my self-esteem up when I'm the new kid? So I think when you're starting to build a program, looking at from that perspective, then and also using them as volunteers so they are feeling wanted and needed at their new center. Yes.
So I'm just curious, following along that, I'm curious about, do you have content? I'm interested in incorporating some of the equine assisted learning.
Yes.
Inside of that, and who's facilitating
I do have some ideas that I could give to you that we used inside the classroom. That me and my one of my coworkers, she and I came up. The Manitou book itself was a great program, a great book. They give out grants, but the book itself for the kids that we were gearing towards were a little too mature for the book. So the book itself, it goes along with a workbook and also a book to read for them. And so we kind of use the ideas of the book, of the different chapters, to develop a better program for our needs of our kids. M-O-D-D, M-A-N-D-O-O. Manitou. Yes.
And kind of going off what you were saying, I do run a camp specifically for kids, vet kids, and because I'm from Connecticut and we're right by Groton, which is a large Navy base, and so we started it because we did a veterans program, and a lot of the kids of the veterans in the program wanted a camp specifically for them, so it became more kind of like a holistic approach. And I did, so I had it based less on writing skills and more on, we did a lot of groundwork. They learned about natural horsemanship, horse behavior, but we also included different games that are team building, or I included journaling in there, so they had prompts and they can journal. So they had that reflective time where they could either share it with me and I can respond if they have questions, or they don't have to.
Yeah. One of
Providing them the options and really, and I found, because we do have kids in our normal program that are children of active duty members.
Yeah.
But the camp, even though it was for 4 days, they keep wanting to come back each year. And I think the first time we ran it, we had a wait list of 70 kids.
That's awesome.
A need for it, but it is.
One of the things that we did do is me and my other coworker did participate in these activities with them. So anything that we asked of them, we did ourselves. So one of the activities we did, we had them stand in front of a mirror and draw things that they see of themselves. How do they view themselves? And so they could either draw it, write notes, do whatever they wanted. And then they could either choose to share it with their group or not. And then the group also shared what they felt of how they view the person externally. Then we did a one of how we view the person internally, where we had all of our friends had Post-it notes on their backs. They had to say 3 positive things and 1 thing that the person could probably work on. So one person put happy, friendly, easy to get along with, and then something that they could work on was they were too sensitive. But it was a constructive thing, and they worked together to, that nothing was negative. It was all in a growing setting. Were 2 of the activities we did. We did another one where we had them take a bottle of toothpaste. This one's kind of fun. And we made them squeeze it out. And then we gave them 2 minutes to put back the toothpaste in the perfect way that they took it out. And the way that what we are trying to say is anything you say, you cannot take back. Yes, someone may forgive you, but you can't take it back. So make sure when you're pouring out that toothpaste is something positive, not only for yourself, but for the people around you. So those were different activities that we did. So anything else before I go on? Yes, ma'am.
The first time we ran it with the military child, but we also included LEOs, law enforcement officers.
Yes.
Because a lot of the law enforcement officers are ex-military.
Yes. That's awesome. So some benefit, volunteering, the volunteers, as we said before, they're great community. Once you get in touch with the military community and you are with them, as she said before, they adopt you. They are very committed. They love helping others. It's in their nature, as someone said before. Their parent involvement. If they're seeing their child is growing and becoming stronger in this community, they are going to also say, maybe this can help me, or this can help my friend that just got out of the military that's having some trouble transitioning. They're loyal. Building a rapport with the military community. Once they see the benefits, once they see that you are committed to them, they will give you 110% to you without any doubt. So, next slide. So, some good resources, because I think the problem people have when trying to get into a military community is they don't know how or where to go. That is the hardest thing. So, some good resources is the MFLAC counselors that I gave you the brochures for. They were originally developed. It is a corporation that has they're not a part of the military, but they work with the military. They started back in the late 2000s, I believe. They were for the service members so that they had someone to talk to, because going to a counselor was not an option. That was the end of your career, and they rather deal with their problems or commit suicide than end their career in losing it from a counselor. So the MFLAC was originally for them. Then they saw a need for the family and the military child. So they started recently going to the different schools and working with the after-school programs and the teen programs to develop counseling for the kids as someone to talk to. They are licensed counselors. Some of them are psychiatrists, psychologists. They are an amazing, amazing resource to use, and they do have connections. Another one, so remember look into what branch you have near you, because the structure is going to be different. What they're called for their family resource center is going to be different. So make sure you look into what branch is near you so you can connect to the right people. For Army and I believe Air Force, it's called MWR, the Moral and Welfare Reaction. They are an amazing, amazing resource. They do a lot of community outreach. They always are looking for things for the families to do and to help the families grow. So trying to get in contact with the MWR near you, they will definitely be very useful. I didn't have it on here, but also the FRG, which is the Family Readiness Group. They are by unit or by company, I think they're called. I'm trying to still learn the lingo after almost 4 years. They're basically the wives or the spouses that are trying to help outreach for the program, to help connect the military members, to make it easier for them. What their original goal is when families are deployed, they are the first ones that are going to get in contact with you in anything that happens. They're an amazing. The first sergeant, they're always a great one. They are trying to make their families more well-rounded and make it more family-friendly than the military was before, which is awesome. The Children's and Youth Services. This is an amazing, amazing thing that the military does have. It is a government agency, but is the after-school program for military children or any DoD civilian that works with them. So any child that's in an after-school program, they have for high school, they have for middle school, and then they have for school age and even for infants. So they are another great resource to get in contact with. Links is for the Marine Corps. I learned one of my friends, her husband's in the Marines. So I believe they're also for the Navy. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone that is a part of those two branches. Sorry if I offended you on that. And also the Boys and Girls Club. They have a huge connection with the military. They work with them side by side, trying to develop programs for the military child to make transitions easier and to create more. They also create programs and lessons and camps for them, so they're another great resource. So, yes.
I heard also that if you're like near Veterans Administration Hospital,
Yes.
somebody told me that if you go and talk to the chaplain at the military, at the VA,
Yeah.
that they might be a good resource too, because you might have access to all the counselors and stuff like that that would help you.
That is a very good point. The chaplain is a great resource if you can get in touch with them. They are usually people that do family retreats. They are trying to create the bond. They are very good people to try to get into contact with. But then you are, when it's active duty, you are getting into the active duty side of it, and they will have to probably go through a checklist of things to go through. So they would have to check in with the first sergeant. They would have to check in with MWR before the chaplain could do anything. So the chaplain is a great resource if you're able to get in with them. But at a VA hospital, they would probably be able to easier connect you to another resource. Anything else? Yes.
I'm searching, I cannot find that Manitou for the life of me.
Okay. I will I'll look it up after, and I will get, okay, perfect. Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, they have resources, but they also do grants. So they are a resource to get funding for if you're trying to start for the military child. Yes.
I was just going to say, we're lucky that in Boston, we have the Red Sox Foundation has funded a huge initiative at Mass General called the Home Base Program.
Okay.
And it's a whole variety of services to active military and veteran families. We're hosting one of their one parent, one child day of activities at our therapeutic riding program in Lexington, Mass. And so I'm just so grateful to be here with you today.
No, that makes me so happy because the things that they go through is they need something like this, and that's so awesome that they're doing that. I hope that there's more grants and stuff. But Manitou, oh, definitely.
A lot of able-bodied riding along with recreational riding, so we'll have a lot of typically developing SIVs with their SIVs with special needs. So we're also hoping maybe we can do some TR left,
Yeah,
experiences for the parents with their, and they will get to ride actually on Sunday.
that's awesome. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
And I was just going to say, along those lines, so I do the fundraising for all of our programs. You mentioned military, people throw money at me. And so we can offer all of our programs free of charge. I mean, it is such, for people who are struggling getting funding, I mean, the blessing is we can do so much for the military. Yeah, our program is so anxious to fund it through one individual donor who wanted to make it happen. So they funded a 3-hour, intensive day.
Like I said, once you're in with the military community and they see that your program is going to help their community, they will help you and they will throw money at you and they will want to help you develop so that you can help them more. Yes, ma'am.
One other thing, since we work with special needs kids on base, if you have access, use the EFMP program, Exceptional Family Members.
Yes.
And they also will steer people your direction for volunteers, but you'll also probably get access to families who have special needs
Oh, okay. I didn't know EMFP did that. Usually, the only reason knew of that was we had to get screened for it before we moved overseas. I just knew it as a screening process and another piece of paperwork. I didn't know that they did that. That's correct, because they don't have the facilities for them. Readiness, oh, yeah, P.
The other thing I was just gonna add is, it's taken us like 3 years to get hooked up with home base.
Yeah, it does take time. There's no rush when it comes to military. But once you're in, you're in. That is the thing. I would say be as patient as possible when you're getting in any type of military program. If you are trying to start a VA program, if you are trying to start a family program, if you are trying to start just for the military child, be patient, because there's so much paperwork if you're going straight into active duty base or even a reserve. There's so many checks and balances that they have to go through before they are going to commit to something. They are going to examine you left, right, up, down, any which way, before getting active. But once they are in, it's a lot easier. Yes. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm curious if there are other, if this is one that's really taken off in Boston. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if in other cities or towns, if there are foundations through big income producing groups like a sports team.
Boys and Girls Club is a big one. Boys and Girls Club, they're a huge one if you look at some of their stuff, but I don't know of any others right now. I was kind of locked in Europe, so it's a whole other world. Yes.
So I actually was one of the key people who started the Equine Veteran Connection at home base. So I've been running, coordinating they have an outpatient clinic.
Okay.
And they have an intensive clinical program, which is a 2-week program. And they draw from all over the country. And after, they come to, right now, one particular farm where we do an immersion weekend for them. But because the model has worked so well, home base is looking to do that with all kinds of other farms.
Yeah.
But the grant that my partner and I have will give 10 hours on that weekend, but an additional 10 hours when they go back into their home kind of atmosphere. So if you're interested in that, grab my card.
Yes, I would love to.
Are you in Strongwater? No, I actually coordinate the program at Touchstone Farm, and we're teaching training Ironstone, and there's a couple other centers.
Perfect.
And just knowing, like you said, that it's a process. And when you're going, just make sure you're prepared, because that really is. So many really great programs have gone in and presented, and you just can't say, the horse heals.
You have to show data.
Why within the veteran.
Yeah. They like cut in their black and white community. You have to think about that. With military, does it work? Does it not work? If it doesn't work, we're not going to do it. So it's not, the horse just makes me feel so giggly inside. That's not cut and dry. That's a feeling. That's not black and white to them. They need consistency of how does your program grow? What does it get its funding? Is it going to be good for us? They're going to ask you every question underneath the sun. So think of it as presenting your business all over again, having a business proposition to them and showing where it could go and where do you see it going in a realistic manner. I think being realistic with them is the best. Right back there and then to you. Yes.
So my position actually do research and evaluation in addition to program director.
Yes.
And I'm actually affiliated with a couple universities, so I do research, and I'm looking to do research within our veterans program. So I'm grounded in the prior lit, but if anybody does have research that they're doing or is interested in doing veterans education programs, I would really love to connect with you. Also, trust me, I know about high hopes, and we're definitely going to talk. But in general, I mean, the biggest pushback that I have is we serve about 250 veterans annually.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic. It's great. And a couple of them are sustainable. They're 8-week programs, and that's through the Veterans Administration, like you said. And our
Wow, yeah.
So in addition to doing research and figuring out how best to do it in a way that will please the veterans and administration, I'm also curious how to grow active families to be more than one time or 1 week of camp.
I think if you're able to show, if you're able to offer that camp and do it for 2 weeks that time instead of just a 1 week, and present them with a curriculum, present them, this is what we're going to be doing, this is where I see the starting point, the ending point. I think that's really going to make them want to come back because they like what's going to happen. They don't like, oh, we're going to feel it out. They're not about feels. They like, as you've worked with the veterans before, they like what's happening. I like a plan. It's the same thing with a kid because there's so much changing with them. They like to know what's happening. They like to know what's going to go on that next week. And they like to have incentives.
Right. The pushback that I get is, okay, great, so let me do an evaluation of it, and then it's, no, we can't let you have that data, right? So I actually do a lot of work with salivary analysis.
Yeah.
At all levels, and you can't do that, right? So there's this really hard place that we sit.
I think the more you just be patient and show them more data that you get, the less pushback you're going to receive. It is a tug and pull game with the military at any time. Whether you're moving, whether you're trying to start a program with them, the military is difficult in that sense. Yes.
I think I found everybody's solution. I looked under education and training, and I came up with Manitoba, Manitoba, and it's under education and training.
Okay.
Would that be it?
I'll look it up once I'm done, but yeah.
Curriculum, subjects, it's science, psychology, all that stuff. So that was it. If anybody wants it, it's, I looked up, here's the website. It's edu.gov.mb as in boy, .ca.
So is that Canada?
I guess that's Canada.
The person that started it was in the United States.
It might be, maybe it's California, I don't know, but it's curriculum for 12, for kindergarten through 12.
Yeah, it might be it. So, is there anything else? No. All right, that is all my resources. I did pull from the DoD. They are a great resource if you're looking into getting more research. Also, there's so much research done on the second hand traumatic stress, the mirror image it's also known as. If you just look up STS, there's so much done on it with people, with parents that are veterans. That is what they have the most recent on. And they're starting to do research on people that served in Afghanistan and Iraq because it's been 10 years, and what is the effects on their family, and what is their effects on their marriage and themselves, and how did they cope with it. And so there's a lot of growing with it, but I think starting this conversation was the most important because then we can grow the programs and not only for the veterans who serve our country, which I'm so blessed with, but also the families and the children that don't really get to choose that life, but they are dealing with it anyways. But so thank you all for coming.